One day, my sisters and I went to McDonald's to have lunch with my grandma, and my grandma saw a free Wi-Fi sign on the wall and immediately got excited and asked us, "No, does the free Wi-Fi come with cheese?" And that's when I knew that there were some things that my grandma didn't understand. It brought me to think about things that I do talk about with my family on daily situations and how much my grandma doesn't understand. This isn't a rare occasion, and it happens more often than I realize. Just the other night, we were having dinner, and I referenced a TikTok in a conversation with my sisters, and she started laughing. And I looked at her and wondered, why was she laughing? Like, does my grandma know the famous TikTok star, Charli D'Amelio? We were all looking at each other and wondering why she was laughing, and that's when I started to realize that she's been laughing at a lot of things that we are 100% sure she doesn't understand. And it got me thinking, does this happen to people, baby boomers in particular, other than my grandma? In an article by AARP and Microsoft released in October 2009, it mentions stories from boomers about how they've had to ask their grandchildren for help on simple things, most of it relating to technology. It says that the stereotype is often true. Boomers do learn about technology from their children. Technology has advanced so much since 2009, making it much more complex than before. I have had many experiences with my grandma helping her find where Netflix is on her tablet. Home screen, grandma. Home screen. Even with Amazon's Alexa, she still calls her Alexis, Audrey, and one time she even called her Sabrina. I don't even know how Alexa goes to Sabrina, but it gives me a further understanding that despite her not being able to understand many of the things younger generations find common or simple, doesn't mean that I shouldn't help her. That we shouldn't try to help both boomers and the older generations to adapt to what's familiarized today. We are living in a society that's growing bigger and better every day. And if we choose to let the older generations figure out things for themselves, we aren't helping anyone at all. So maybe it does suck being called an overly amount of times just to help your grandparents find where their Netflix is, and trying to explain that Wi-Fi isn't a type of food, but it's nice to know that you're trying to help a boomer understand what these things are. Now my grandma knows who the famous TikTok star Charli D'Amelio is, and she'll be able to understand my TikTok references at dinner. Thank you.
My name is Jedria Villar, a 15-year-old student from Mount Carmel School. I'm not a genius, but I know this idea is definitely worth sharing. Let's begin in 2016, when I was 11. When I was 11 and I was getting closer to my teenage years, I've always asked myself one thing. Why do popular people get all the respect? I was so obsessed with this question until the point I'd do anything to become popular. I've done many things I regret because of my way of thinking that time. When I became a teen, that's when the past snuck up behind me. It made me think to myself, am I a good person? Do I deserve a good future? I felt all my regrets, terrible thoughts, and bad memories stabbing me like knives, filling my mind, and destroying me. These regrets controlled me, the way I think and behave. They even pop up randomly sometimes that it decreases my productivity. When I became 15, I was trapped with these thoughts. And these thoughts went into my mind so much that I began to completely dislike myself. I ran into something I got stuck in. I was stuck in an invisible quicksand, self-hatred. But just like quicksand, you can be free from this invisible quicksand. There are many things you can do to overcome self-hatred. I've done these 3 things that helped me free myself from self-hatred. First, take a look at yourself. Instead of looking at the negatives, look at the positives. Instead of forgetting the past, remember it, but in a positive way. Things happen for a reason, and without you making those mistakes, you wouldn't learn from it and become the person who you are today. The past makes you who you are today. Talk to someone. There are 2 things you can do. You can ask the person for help, or you can help the person. They're both the same because they both make you feel good about yourself. In fact, helping someone doesn't have like a physical reward, but an emotional reward similar to the feeling of success. And finally, know that you are a unique person. Know that there is only one of you in this world. You are a unique person, and you have your own talents, strengths, and more. Know that you are more than good enough for this world because of your own uniqueness. And with slow learning and these three things I do, I learned to forgive myself, and now I can say, I love myself.
The polar bears. They are big and cool beasts, aren't they? At least that's the perception I always had on those cool guys until the moment I saw this picture. Ouch. They are sorting through trashes and ice in search of their food. So, who here likes to eat trash covered in ice? Unfortunately, upon seeing these sad images of today's polar bears, my perception has changed. Oh my goodness sakes. They aren't so cool anymore and my eyes had no fault of their own. These guys aren't cool anymore because we are cool. We constantly use aircon to keep ourselves cool. By doing so, we make the polar bears uncool. And yet, I know we can make them cool again. As you know, ice are melting fast, in particular to Arctic, near the North Pole, where the polar bears live. This is the very effect of global warming caused by factory pollution. Together, our reckless abandoned usage of goods, such as aircon abuse, that have accumulated over the years. We use aircon to a point where it just becomes a habit. Anytime you come home and are inside a house, you realize that you automatically turn on the aircon without even thinking. This is what typifies the example of reckless abandoned usage of goods that are aircon in our daily lives. Consequently, this type of usage of goods in today's modern world is killing the polar bears. Our selfish way of living adds to global warming effect that ultimately forces the changes in polar bears' habitats. The habitat changes include melting of snow and ice, less food to eat, and less place to reside for polar bears. This puts the polar bears in jeopardy for their survival and forces them to move around to find food. This leads to poor polar bears sorting through leftover trashes and leftovers of predators to find their source of food, just to survive. This may not look cool anymore, but it doesn't matter to them because it is their means of survival, whether it is cool or not. The sad reality is that we are the ones who put these cool animals in this terrible predicament. We, the modern people of today's high-tech world, turn these cool animals into uncool creatures at no fault or will of their own. Adding insult to an injury, not only are we turning them into uncool creatures, but we are turning them into endangered species due to these habitat changes. As a matter of fact, there are only about 22,000 to 33,000 polar bears left in the world today. Every day, more polar bears are starving and or going through near-death experiences from the hungers. As I wrap up my session with you today, I want you to think about the three things that I have mentioned. 1. I see many polar bears eating through trashes. 2. I see many polar bears losing their homestead, their habitat, and make their way to find other homes that they may or may not survive in. 3. Polar bears are now extremely endangered species. As far as I'm concerned, I know that we, the modern people of today's high-tech world, can do something about this by making certain sacrifices. We can make the species to live again if we can all collectively make some effort to conserve energy and find ways to live more green life. I, for one, will do my best by resisting the temptation of turning on the aircon tonight before I go to sleep. I will turn off all electrical powers at home that are not attended to starting tonight. I will also try to recycle trashes at home as much as I can. Certainly, I will not litter any trash outside. Just little things like this can and should help our poor polar bears. With your help, I'm dreaming these poor guys turning back to their normal lives and become the cool beasts that we all know. Thanks for your time.
Let me tell you a story about the time I found out I was adopted. I was 5 years old on a ride back home when I asked my father, "Am I adopted?" When we got home, we had a little discussion about it, and of course, my 5-year-old self just sat there listening. And at that time, I thought I understood what it meant, but it appeared to be so much more. Over the years after I found out that I was adopted, my sister and I got so many questions asking us why we don't look alike. In fact, there was this one time when a cashier asked us that same question, and with no doubt, I straight up told her I was adopted. And because she felt bad for me, she gave me a free McFlurry. Looking back at that now, I realized that adoption isn't just something that got me free ice cream, but it became part of who I am now. Most people are used to the idea that everyone has a family. But what they don't know is that there's a story behind each and every one of them. In fact, there are even some children around the world who don't have a family. And there are a bunch of children and families who struggle and chose to give these children a future through adoption. According to Adoption Network, statistics show that about 135,000 children are adopted in a year, and 428,000 children are taken into foster care. However, some children don't have the opportunity to be adopted or be taken into foster care. Unfortunately, every year there are about 1.3 million abortions, and only 4% of women with unwanted pregnancies place their children for adoption. That 4% were chosen to give a future and a life beyond the womb. Luckily for me, I was part of that 4%. Those children who are adopted are not only given a life, they are given a family who will love, protect, and support them. 3 necessities that a child needs to grow. It started with one choice that can make a difference in a child's life. In my case, I was born in a poor, small area in the Philippines. My biological mom knew that she couldn't provide for me financially, but she knew that I could still be given the life that I deserve. And then I was adopted by the family I am with now, and raised on a tropical island and became a US citizen. I was born into one society, one economic class, and citizenship, but raised in an entirely different one. However, making that choice doesn't exactly come easily. Given today's circumstances, women struggle with making decisions like these. They often feel pressured or threatened, and that their natural rights aren't theirs anymore. But without this decision, families are not able to protect the future of their children. Sometimes people perceive adoption as a bad thing, but the choice of adoption is made with a deeper understanding of hopes and love for a child's future. Coming to my conclusion, after all these years knowing I was adopted, it became part of my identity. It made me realize how fortunate I am, and if my biological mom did not choose adoption, I wouldn't be where I am now. I would not have met my best friends who keep up with me and stick with me through thick and thin. I would not have met figures that made a huge impact in my life by teaching me a lesson or influencing me in some sort of way. And most of all, I would not experience the love and support my family gave me today. Without these people, I would not be where I am today. Adoption gave me a life, a family, and most especially, a love with no borders. Thank you.